Hi, John. Thank you for coming in today. My name is Silvia Mordini, and I'm a graduate student at University of South Florida. And I'm really glad that you made time for this session. How are you feeling today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I just want you to know that this is a really safe space, and I am here to support you. We're just really going to get to know each other a little bit better and see about whether it makes sense for us to work together moving forward. Does that sound all right?
That sounds great.
Wonderful. Then during our session, I'm just going to let you know that I'll be taking notes, and these are just for me. All right. Um, and to give you a little bit of an idea of what we'll cover today, this is an evaluation session. This isn't a therapy session. So I just want to give you a better understanding of the type of modality that I focus upon, known as CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And I want to get a sense of the challenges that you're facing, how I can help, what kind of support might be most useful to you, and and then spend a little time just getting to know each other. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Yes.
So I like to think of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, as a really practical, hands-on approach to therapy. The basic idea is that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all interconnected. And because of that, how we feel is influenced by what we're thinking. And let me give you an example of that. So I want you to imagine that you're walking down the street and somebody you know passes you by without saying hello. So you might come up with a story that says, like, they're mad at me and they probably are upset with me for some reason. Um, and then you won't feel as okay, right? But conversely, you could come up with the narrative that this person passed you on the street and they just didn't see you, and you're going to feel okay from that interaction. But whatever story we're coming up with in our thoughts influences how we feel. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yes. In fact, your example, I've lived your example where I was the person that didn't say hi because I didn't see the person walking. But yeah,
Well, I appreciate that. I think that that sort of scenario plays out a million times a day. And so, what CBT really does, it helps us to identify and change unhelpful thoughts and beliefs and distinguish which beliefs are true and which aren't. And that then impacts how we behave. And a lot of the times, we just have these automatic patterns that develop, and sometimes even negative patterns that develop. And that can create this feeling of being stuck or overwhelmed or anxiety or further stress. So, with CBT, we're going to work together learning how to notice and pay attention to these patterns of behavior so that you can challenge them and you can learn a different way to respond to them. And we'll start today by just exploring, some situation that is causing you some distress, and then the thoughts that you're having related to that. Um, and the great thing about CBT is that it's not just about talking in our sessions. It's really practical strategies like a mental health like toolkit that you always have with you to apply, and and that you can apply it anywhere you are. And I'll even sometimes maybe even give you some easy homework to do to put things into practice and play. Um, and just know that anything you learn about CBT as a modality is always going to be there for you whenever you need it. How does that sound?
that sounds great. That sounds great. I'm interested in getting started.
Well, have you done CBT before?
I haven't. I have not.
Well, great. Then this will be a really wonderful experience all the way around. Now, before we go any deeper, I just want to talk a little bit about a few policies and ethical guidelines that are your right as a client.
Mhm.
And first, everything we talk about in our sessions is confidential. That means that whatever you say stays between us, but there are a couple exceptions. So if something you say is seems to uh imply that your safety is at risk, or the safety of another person is at risk, or there's some sort of legal obligation that I'm under, then I need to say something. But we're always going to talk about this and discuss this before anything would go further. Does that sound clear?
Sure, sure. No, I understand.
Great. Now, we also have a policy called informed consent, which means you're always in control of what we talk about and the goals that we set. And you can ask questions and express concerns at any time. You're here voluntarily. You can end our sessions as you wish. And I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable and safe when we work together. And if you ever feel uncomfortable, that you let me know so that we can adjust things. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Well, that's good to know. And now I also want to mention that you've already signed a consent form and before we started this session. So just bringing your attention to that. So
Sure.
now let's go ahead and dive in, right? Um,
Mhm.
let's start talking a little bit about what's going on for you. So, John, can you share with me something that you're finding challenging in your life right now?
Sure. One of the things I thought we could talk about that you might be able to help with is I don't always sleep well, and I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and it's difficult. It's not difficult to fall asleep. It's difficult to stay asleep. And when I wake up, often I'm thinking about work, and once my mind starts going, it's very difficult to get back to sleep. And so I thought that would be a good topic to talk about today.
And how long have you been experiencing these sleep issues?
For wow, for a while, for years, on
And
and off. And the challenge is I can't figure out a specific pattern, right? There's, some nights I'll sleep great, sleep through the night, and then one or two nights during the week won't be able to sleep through the night. And, you know, early on it wasn't as big of a problem. Power through the next day with work. A lot of times it'll happen when I'm traveling. I travel often. And so, new environment, different hotel rooms, um, won't sleep through the night, but then, it was an issue powering through work in the day, and I figure I'll catch up on the weekends. But it's it's a little more difficult now. I'm not quite as sharp and as quick in the morning, getting up when I'm tired and hadn't slept through the night.
so it sounds like this isn't a short-term situation. The duration has
Mm.
been over a longer period of time, and that if I'm understanding correctly, you're having trouble figuring out what the pattern is or what the catalyst or the cause is because it
Yes,
seems to be changing.
exactly, exactly.
And is there anything that, besides travel, being in a different environment, is there anything else that you've noticed that tends to trigger um, the sleep issues at all or make them
It-
worse?
Probably work. We all have stress at work, and there's pressures at work and deadlines and things like that. Sometimes when I'm working on a project or trying to get through something that, is challenging, it's always on my mind. You're always thinking through different ideas, through the process. And so definitely during those times and during those periods, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and start, you know, your mind immediately goes to work, starts thinking about work. And so you start thinking about, what you're working on, and it's difficult to shut that off.
Mm. So work is one of the key factors, it sounds like, that's influencing waking up, and that then you're what is it in particular when you say you're thinking about work when you wake up? What is it about work, and what sort of feeling comes up when you're thinking about work and you're waking up in the middle of the night?
You know, um, I never thought about the feeling. I guess it's always, about a project we're trying to finish or a deadline or deal we're trying to close, something I'm trying to accomplish, whatever that end goal is. I guess I'm always thinking how to move it to the next step. How do we move it to the next step? How do we accelerate the process? How do we achieve what we need to achieve? And, that's where my mind goes, is where I left off when I went to bed, and I pick it back up in the middle of the night sometimes. And you start thinking through the process and, feeling,
Yeah, how does it
and
make
it's
you
interesting
feel?
because I don't necessarily feel stressed or anxious. It's just more about, okay, how do we, get to the next step or get through the process, or, you know, I just start working through the process of wherever we're at and whatever we're working on to, get to that end goal, to that achievement.
It sounds like there's a bit of a rehearsing for what's coming next in the project and running through the details. And
Yeah.
how then does not sleeping well impact the next day? That's that you said you're you're in the middle of a project and
Mhm.
sounds like there's a lot expected of you. So how does it impact the next day at work?
Lately, because it used to not affect me as much early on, but now I know I'm not as sharp as I used to be. When you're tired, it takes a little bit longer you know, to clear the cobwebs or whatever, to get focused and to get into the groove and into that work environment. I know I've noticed I've worked a little slower. I'm not as quite as sharp first thing in the morning. You need that coffee. I need that coffee and caffeine to get going. I used to never drink coffee. And so this is just something that I've been aware about myself. And but it definitely has a little bit more of an impact than it did before.
Hmm. So I appreciate the awareness that you're demonstrating and recognizing that there's this slowing down and that there is an impact the next day. And even a stimulant like coffee, just knowing that there's a pattern that's developing there. Have you ever tried anything to improve your sleep?
Melatonin is the only thing I've really tried consistently, and it does work. It does work. Um, it helps. It helps.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Um, I really think that we can excavate the the patterns a lot more in our upcoming sessions, and that it would reveal a lot and give you further actions to take. It sounds like you've tried melatonin, but we could also look at developing and looking at nighttime rituals, other morning rituals, and healthy habits. But so thank you for sharing. And and so I just want to say that moving forward, um, I want to see you understand these patterns and how they affect what you're feeling and your overall behavior. And that I will do my best to help you develop strategies so that you feel like you're as energized as you need to be for that next day. Does that sound helpful?
Yes, it does, and I appreciate that because the melatonin is just a band-aid, right? It helps it's just something to help me sleep versus solving the problem. And so I appreciate that. Yes.
Well, I want you to know that this is a real collaborative process and we are working together. And we're going to go at your pace and just explore this further. But well, that's the time that we have for what we're covering today. And I know it's been a lot, but I appreciate you sharing with me this that's causing you some challenges. And I hope that you can take away from this that we can develop a really great plan and move forward. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Yes, I would love that.
Well, great. Well, thanks again for being open today, and I'm really looking forward to working together with you.
Me too. Me too.
Well, have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.